Hello everyone, welcome to Anime No Me, and thank you for joining us for another One Piece video. Luffy and Katakuri have a great respect for each other. Respect which might allow these two pirates to unite in order to take on a much bigger enemy that is causing them great trouble. So in today's video, we're going to talk about the possibility of Luffy and Katakuri teaming up to defeat a common enemy. And we're also going to talk about how this alliance between these two great pirates might actually happen. Before we dive into the video, if you're new to the channel or even if you've watched a bunch of our videos, we'd be absolutely honored if you'd leave us a like and even subscribe and maybe leave us a comment letting us know what you thought of the video. It really helps us out, especially with that old YouTube algorithm, and it keeps motivating us to make more content. And if you'd like to help out the channel in a bigger way, consider sharing this video or another one of your favorites with a friend. But without further ado, let's get into the video. So my friends, now that Big Mom has been defeated and Katakuri and his brothers and sisters no longer have a captain, their crew has pretty much ceased to exist, making all of Big Mom's children just simple pirates who still have control over Taro Island. And although Luffy and Katakuri did fight in the past, and Luffy was even one of those responsible for making Big Mom lose her life, there is a possibility that Katakuri could team up with Luffy to defeat a more common and larger enemy. As many of you might have already guessed, that enemy could easily be Teach, one of the most powerful pirates in the world, and who is disturbing Luffy's plans, and has also kidnapped Katakuri's sister, Pudding, making Teach a common enemy of all of Big Mom's children and Straw Hat Luffy. During the invasion of Totoland by Germa 66, and then later by Teach's pirates, we had no information about Katakuri or his brothers, which could mean that they might be planning to retrieve Pudding, who was of course taken by Teach. Now Pudding is an extremely important character, being a member of the Three-Eyed Tribe, and this is a tribe of people with the natural ability to read the poneglyphs, and they may even be the ones responsible for teaching regular humans, much like the archaeologists of Ohara, how to read the poneglyphs. Pudding also is of course a beloved sibling of Katakuri, being one of his sisters, and also the fact that she does possibly have that ability to read the poneglyphs. So if any one of the Charlotte family wanted to be able to find the One Piece treasure, it's absolutely necessary for them to be able to understand what's written in the poneglyphs, which currently only Nico Robin has the ability to do in the world. Now, as far as we know, Pudding still hasn't managed to awaken the powers of her third eye, and she doesn't even know if she can ever awaken these powers because she doesn't have the pure blood of the Three-Eyed Tribe. But even if she doesn't, Katakuri is still gonna go after Teach to get his sister back. Now obviously he's not gonna go alone, as Katakuri no longer has Big Mom by his side to be able to take on a pirate as powerful as Teach. Therefore, Katakuri might just ask for Luffy's help to fight by his side against another Yonko, uniting the Straw Hats with the former Big Mom pirates, forming a union never thought of before. The union of two extremely powerful pirate crews in search of the singular mission of defeating Blackbeard, otherwise known as Teach. From the very beginning of the Totoland arc, it was visible that Katakuri and Luffy had become great enemies. But something we would have never thought possible or even expected was that there was a great respect and even friendly rivalry that arose between these two fighters. During the Totoland arc, Katakuri didn't even consider Luffy a threat, just an obstacle in his path that had to be destroyed, treating Luffy and the other Straw Hats as simply inferior to himself. And even during his final fight against Luffy, Katakuri showed the great superiority that he possessed compared to Luffy's power, managing to imitate all of the Rubber Boy's techniques, but with even greater efficiency and greater panache, managing to overwhelm Luffy easily no matter if he used his normal form or even Gear 4 Bound Man. But even though he might have been much weaker than Katakuri, Luffy persisted in combat, trying at all costs to defeat Big Mom's most powerful son, and this caused Katakuri to start getting a little more angry at Luffy's insistence. Eventually, his frustration peaked, and he reluctantly used his Devil Fruit powers to choke Luffy until he went unconscious, but later apologized to the Straw Hat captain for having ended the fight in that way. But Luffy managed to escape that suffocation and eventually returned to combat once again. Now, Katakuri was already completely irritated with Luffy and wanted to get this fight over with, but Katakuri's anger increased even more when Luffy saw Katakuri's full face, got to see his insecurity and the source of the reason why he wore such a big frilly scarf. It was this momentary slip of rage that allowed Luffy to finally land a hit on him and momentarily dominate the match. And this was all good until Katakuri managed to compose himself so that he could concentrate on the fight again, allowing Luffy to lose this great advantage that he once had. But as the fight drew on and this turned into a much longer conflict, little by little Luffy was able to further improve his haki and his fighting style and develop his future sight, allowing him to adapt to Katakuri's blows. But this is when things started to change in the fight. Noticing this rapid evolution, Katakuri began to respect Luffy and even acquired a little bit of admiration for Luffy. That throughout the fight, Luffy was one of the few pirates who truly provided him with a challenge and an incredible battle. Katakuri even expressed this admiration for Luffy's determination to protect his crew by breaking the mirror that served as the one source of escape, trapping Luffy with Katakuri in the mirror dimension. Katakuri was also impressed that Luffy was able to take his hits for so long, noticing that Luffy was also getting excited about this confrontation that they were having. And again, Luffy, little by little, gradually managed to discover Katakuri's secrets, unraveling the mysteries of his devil fruit and how a paramecia managed to work in the same way as a Logia fruit. And this was also when he discovered that Katakuri's great ability to briefly predict the future events was about his advanced level of observation haki, which Luffy, throughout the battle, also managed to learn because haki always blooms in the heat of battle. Observing how Luffy was managing to learn how to use advanced observation haki just like him, Katakuri began to consider Luffy a much bigger danger, an enemy with great evolutionary capacity during battle. As Luffy began presenting him a much bigger and bigger challenge, Katakuri began to use all of his skills to try and defeat the captain of the Straw Hats, even getting irritated when his little sister came to interfere in the middle of their battle. Katakuri and Luffy both used their Conqueror's haki and caused a large explosion of haki energy that was able to knock out everyone who was witnessing that fight. And this allowed Luffy and Katakuri to continue fighting without any interference from third parties. From then on, Katakuri began to fight Luffy not out of obligation to protect his mother, Big Mom, or even his family, but out of respect for the great challenge that Luffy was providing in this fight. And Katakuri finally recognized Luffy as a rival, making Luffy's defeat his main objective, not out of anger or again obligation, but out of respect for this confrontation they were having. Near the end and the climax of the fight, Luffy showed off his new transformation that he had acquired during his training with Rayleigh, the transformation called Gear 4th Snake Man, a transformation where Luffy's body became much leaner than the big bound man and prioritizing speed and technique. Luffy then coupled this transformation with his observation haki, and it allowed Luffy to hit Katakuri even though he tried to predict the Rubber Boy's movements. And this caused Katakuri to be even further impressed with the way that Luffy was pushing him to his limit. At the end of the battle, Katakuri was completely exhausted, but not just him, Luffy was also at his limit. Katakuri then asked Luffy if he would one day return to defeat Big Mom, and after hearing his answer, he smiled and recognized him as someone who possessed the ability to become the Pirate King. In a way of demonstrating this recognition, Katakuri allowed himself to fall back, and for the first time in his life, allowed his back to touch the ground, as Luffy was the first person to ever actually defeat Katakuri in battle. Through all of the fights and evolution, this is what caused Katakuri and Luffy to form a respectful rivalry between them. Something very similar to Whitebeard with Roger, and even though they fought wherever they met, Whitebeard and Roger always laughed and celebrated something together. When Katakuri finally woke up as Brûlé tended to his wounds, he asked about Luffy and was pleased to find out that he'd escaped the island. So this means that Katakuri wants to find Luffy in the future, possibly to get a revenge, or at the very least, a rematch. But for the moment, this is just not the right time for Katakuri to fight Luffy again. So he may end up asking for help from the Straw Hats and Luffy to save his sister Pudding, especially with the connection that Sanji, a member of the Straw Hat crew, has with his sister Pudding. With the combined strength of the Straw Hat crew and Katakuri and his siblings, there is a great chance that they'll be able to save Pudding, and even Kobe, who is currently being held captive by Teach as well for his own reasons that we still haven't learned. So it may be that once Luffy and Katakuri manage to defeat or at least save Pudding, that then they can have that friendly rematch between these two amazing pirates, allowing Katakuri to demonstrate the possible new strength that he may have acquired while Luffy was acquiring new strengths in Wano. But when this rematch occurs, imagine how much more powerful that these two fighters are going to have, providing an incredible fight for Luffy. And even if our favorite rubber captain was to use Gear 5th and transform into the sun god Nika to confront Katakuri, imagine how incredible this duel would be in the future. But with all that said, we'd now love to know what you think about it. What do you think the possibility is of Luffy and Katakuri teaming up to save Pudding and Kobe? Or do you think that Katakuri might run into Garp and they would rather team up? Also, when do you think we're gonna get to see this amazing rematch between Luffy and Katakuri? Do you think it's something that'll happen before the big fight that we expect at the end of the saga? Or is this gonna be after everything's settled and now we just have some time to go out and stretch our legs and fight with our friends? Let us know what you think in the comments comments below. So as we wrap up our video for the day, we'd like to thank you all so much for watching the video, especially those of you who've made it here to the very end. Be sure you comment on any themes or ideas that you'd like to see in future videos. And also, since you made it this far, give us a like and hit that red subscribe button before you head out to take on the rest of your day. I hope to see you all in our next video, and let's keep sailing this giant sea together. Take care.